I once stood at my door for 5 minutes. A man was freezing outside, and I was afraid to open it. My name is Anna. I am 52 years old. I run a small business. I have a family. Today, my life looks calm and stable. But 20 years ago, one winter night changed me. That night, I almost let a man die. I still remember how I felt. I felt my heart beat fast. I thought about my house, my husband, my safety. I whispered to myself that I was a good person. I told myself I had reasons to be careful. The street was dark. The wind was loud. And I stayed behind a closed door. That night never left me. It stayed in my thoughts. It followed me in quiet moments. Even now, when I think about it, my hands feel cold. This fear did not come from nowhere. 20 years ago, my life was very different. I lived with my husband in a small house, and we ran our business together. Money was never easy. Every month felt like a test. I felt the pressure each morning when I woke up, and I thought about numbers before I thought about people. We worked hard. We watched every dollar. We planned everything. I knew our life depended on careful steps, not big risks. At that time, fear lived with us. Fear sat at our table every night. Fear spoke when we made choices. I felt it when I paid the bills. I felt it when the phone rang late. I thought fear was not weakness. I thought fear was protection. I whispered to myself, again and again, that careful people survived. We had one promise we shared without saying it out loud. If we stayed careful, we stayed safe. Inside our home, things felt controlled. The soup boiled softly on the stove. The room stayed warm and quiet. My husband turned the pages of the newspaper, slow and steady. Outside was different. I heard the wind hit the door. Snow brushed against the window. I felt the cold even before I stepped outside. I knew the world beyond our walls did not forgive mistakes. Dinner was often silent. Bills lay flat on the table. I looked at numbers. My husband listened to the evening news. We did not talk much. We watched. We observed. We believed that people who looked closely made better choices. I felt proud of that belief. I thought it made us strong. That night, before everything changed, I looked through the window once more. I noticed a man outside, standing still, watching people pass by. He did not ask for anything. He just watched. I did not understand why that image stayed with me. It felt strange. It felt out of place. Looking back now, I know that moment mattered. At the time, I only felt a quiet unease. I thought it would pass, but it didn't. I saw him again when I opened the door to check the weather. He stood near the streetlight, thin and still. Snow fell on his coat, but he did not move closer. I felt my chest tighten. I thought about the cold. I thought about the door. Then I stepped back inside and closed it. The lock clicked. I knew I chose safety. When I turned away, I looked once more through the glass. He did not follow. He did not ask. He did not knock. He stayed where he was, silent, like he was waiting for nothing. Inside the house, I tried to act normal. I took off my coat. I put my keys on the table. My hands felt stiff. I whispered to myself that I did the right thing. Maybe someone else would help him. Maybe he would find a place. Maybe it was not my job. I repeated these thoughts slowly, like rules I had learned before. I felt calmer for a moment. I thought the night would pass. I knew the world was full of other doors. My husband noticed my face and asked what was wrong. I told him about the man outside. He looked toward the window and then back at me. He said it was dangerous. He said we did not know who that man was. I felt his fear, and it sounded like my own. We spoke in short sentences. No shouting, no anger, just worry. I thought about broken locks. I thought about stories on the news. I knew fear was speaking again. While we talked, I looked outside without thinking. The man was still there. He did not walk around. He did not search through bags. He did not touch anything near our house. I noticed his hands. He picked up a few empty cans from the ground. He placed them in a straight line, one by one. slow, careful. I felt something strange in my stomach. I did not say a word about it. I just watched. I thought it was odd, but I did not know why. The wind grew stronger. I heard it press against the walls. I stopped talking. I walked closer to the window. Snow moved sideways now. My breath slowed. I felt tired. I rested my hand on the cold glass. For a short moment, everything went quiet inside me. No plans, no rules, just the sound of the wind and my own breathing. I knew this silence would not last. I stepped away from the window and walked toward the door. I stood there without touching it. I felt my heart beat in my ears. I thought about the soup still warm on the stove. I thought about the street outside. My feet felt heavy on the floor. I whispered to myself that I only needed one more minute. I stood by the door again. This time, my hand was shaking. I looked at the clock on the wall. 1 minute passed, then another. I felt time slow down, like the room was holding its breath. I stood near the door and did nothing. I thought I only needed a little more time. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, my hands felt cold even in the warm room. I walked back to the window and looked out again. The man swayed on his feet. His shoulders dropped, then his body slipped. He fell against a trash bin and slid down to the ground. He did not stand up again. I felt my heart jump hard in my chest. I knew this was not waiting anymore. This was danger. My breathing broke into short sounds. I felt dizzy. My hands were shaking, and my fingers went numb. I pressed my palm against the door, but I did not open it. I thought about the clock. I thought about the snow. I whispered to myself that this was going too far. My body reacted before my mind could decide. The clock kept ticking. Each sound felt loud. I stood there, frozen. My hand stayed on the door handle, but I could not move it. I felt stuck between inside and outside. I felt the floor under my feet, solid and safe. I felt the cold through the door, sharp and real. I knew something was breaking inside me. For a few seconds, nothing changed. The house was silent. The man did not move. My breath came out slow and uneven. I thought about all the rules I lived by. I thought about fear. I thought about safety. Then the question came, heavy and quiet. Not alone, but pressed between my breaths and the ticking clock. What kind of person was I becoming? The thought did not bring peace. It brought weight. I stood there, still unable to move, while time kept going forward without me. I stood in front of the door and did not open it yet. My hand reached for the lock, then stopped. I felt my chest tighten. I thought I had already waited too long. I knew the cold outside was winning. Still, my body refused to move. When my fingers touched the lock, I felt another hand on my shoulder. It was my husband. He did not speak. He did not pull me back. His hand was warm, but it was shaking. I did not turn around. I felt his fear travel through that simple touch. I thought he was not stopping me. He was afraid, just like me. I whispered to myself that this fear was shared, not forced. I looked outside one last time. Snow covered the man's coat. His head hung low. His legs bent in a way that looked wrong. I knew he could not stand much longer. My breath came out in short bursts. My hands were shaking so hard I could hear it in my ears. For a second, everything was silent inside the house. I was scared, but I opened the door. Cold air rushed in and hit my face. It felt sharp and alive. I stepped forward without thinking. My feet moved before my mind could stop them. I knelt down and reached for the man. His body felt light and heavy at the same time. I felt how cold he was through my gloves. I thought he might slip away if I waited one more second. "Please, come inside," I said. My voice sounded small. I barely recognized it. I pulled him up with all my strength. My arms burned. My legs trembled. I knew I was not strong, but I did not stop. My husband came closer, still silent, and helped hold the door open. We brought the man inside and laid him near the heater. I felt my knees give way, and I sat on the floor. My hands were shaking. Tears ran down my face without sound. No one spoke. The house was quiet again, but it felt different now. I took a deep breath and held it. For a moment, I could only hear my own heart. I thought about the door. I thought about the cold. I knew that something in me had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The man did not wake up right away. I sat on the floor near him and waited. My back leaned against the wall. My legs felt weak. I felt cold inside. Even though the room was warm, I thought about the door again and again. I knew how close I came to doing nothing. After some time, he moved. His eyes opened slowly. He tried to sit up, but his body failed him. He collapsed back onto the floor. I reached out without thinking. My hands were still shaking. I whispered to myself to stay calm. I felt afraid to touch him, but I did it anyway. He looked at me and started to cry. His shoulders shook. He tried to speak, but his voice broke. He pushed himself up and fell to his knees. He bowed his head low in front of me. I did not know what to do. I felt my throat tighten. He whispered thank you again and again. I knew he was not thanking my house. He was thanking the choice. Later that night, he told me a little. Not his story, just the cold. He whispered about people who did not make it, people who waited too long, people who stayed invisible. I felt a heavy weight in my chest. I thought about how many doors stayed closed that night. When he rested near the heater, I sat alone at the table. I cried without sound. My hands lay flat on the wood. I knew something had changed. The house felt different after that night. After that night, I saw him again. Not every day, just sometimes. It was never planned. I met him near the same street or close to the old shops. I felt my steps slow each time. I thought about the door, even when I did not want to. I brought him food, sometimes soup, sometimes bread. I handed it to him and waited. He took it with both hands. He nodded once. I nodded back. We did not talk much. I did not ask his name. He did not ask mine. I felt this was better. Simple, quiet. We stood there for a moment. Cars passed. People walked by. He ate slowly. I watched his hands. They were steady now. I thought about how small things can return again and again, not as miracles, just as habits. Some days I did not see him at all. Other days I did. I knew nothing about his past. He knew nothing about mine. There were no promises, no plans, no words about tomorrow. I felt a strange peace in that. When I walked away, I did not look back for long. I whispered to myself to keep moving. I thought this small kindness would end there. Years passed. Life moved on. My business faced a quiet crisis. Sales fell. Old plans stopped working. I felt the pressure again, but it felt different this time. I thought I had learned control, but the numbers no longer listened. I knew fear was back, sitting close to me. One cold afternoon, I saw him again. He stood near the street, in the same calm way. We spoke more than before, but our words stayed simple. He never gave advice. He never told me what to do. He only talked about what he saw. He watched people stop. He watched them wait. He watched them turn away when they felt unsure. At first, I did not understand what he meant. He said people slowed down when they were afraid. They looked at the ground. They followed others instead of choosing alone. I listened. I felt something shift inside me. I thought about my store. I thought about my customers. I knew I had seen the same things, but never named them. He did not speak like a teacher. He spoke like someone standing still for a long time. I whispered to myself as I walked home. I thought about how fear changes choices. I felt my chest tighten, then ease. I knew I had been watching numbers, not people. I changed small things. I watched where people stopped. I noticed when they hesitated. I felt less need to control everything. The business slowly breathed again. He never said I was right. I never said thank you. But I knew this new way of seeing had already begun. Kindness is not just an emotion. It is a choice we make in small moments. It is a key that opens doors to wisdom we never knew existed. When we act with compassion, we change how we see others. We also change how we see ourselves. I think kindness teaches us dignity, even when life feels unfair. It gives us a new perspective when fear tries to lead us. Sometimes, the help we offer feels small and quiet, but its meaning can be very deep. In the end, the person you save does not always walk away unchanged. Sometimes, the person you save ends up saving you too. After hearing this story, you may start to think about your own life. The moral is simple, but its meaning is deep. Kindness opens doors. Now the question is how this truth lives in your world today. In life and in business, you may believe that control keeps you safe. You plan carefully. You avoid risk. You let fear guide many of your choices. This feels smart. But something is often missing. When you walk past homeless people, you may look away. You may think they see nothing, but many of them see what others ignore. In business and in life, look where others refuse to look. The invisible people often see the most visible truths. Fear tells you to close doors. Compassion asks you to pause. A small kindness can change one moment. One decision can change one path. One door can change one life. Do not let fear build a wall around your heart. A small act of help today can become your biggest blessing tomorrow. Would you open the door? Comment yes if you would open it. Comment no if you would not. Comment, I'm not sure if you are still thinking. In your life, is there a door you are afraid to open? You do not have to answer now. Take a moment before you go. Like this story, if it touched you. Subscribe to hear more stories like this. Thank you for listening.